Hello class, this is Mr. Broussard. I'm sending you this video for the Composition 1 eighth week of class for the fall of 2020. I hope you're all doing well. First things first, obviously the descriptive narrative essay was due earlier this morning, and so what will happen is probably tomorrow I will start grading these tomorrow and Friday, and hopefully we'll have them all done by the time I leave work Friday at 11 a.m. Just to let you know, you do have a journal that is due, let's just say tonight, so make sure you get it done tonight. And you will have another journal that is due next week. Let's just say next Tuesday night is when that one will be due. So make sure you have both of those journals done when they are done. So that is it as far as the physical work that you will have to do. But now you have the actual reading and watching that you'll have to do for this week. Because this week we are finally getting to the third of the combined rhetorical modes that we will be dealing with, and that is Chapter 19, Strategies for Supporting an Argument, in dealing strictly with the element of comparison and contrast. That's on page 457 to 459, and then fully going into Chapter 14, Writing Analytically, let's take a closer look, which is on pages 229 to 281. So these are two different rhetorical modes that are being merged into one essay. So you have a few pages on compare and contrast, but you have an entire very solid chapter on writing analytically, analysis writing. And this is highly important. Let me say that because a couple of years ago, we were all asked by multiple university professors from multiple universities across the Mid-South and the Gulf South, Ole Miss, Memphis, Arkansas State, Mississippi State, Tennessee. In fact, me and a couple of colleagues went to a symposium up at Ole Miss where all these professors told us you need to get your students writing analysis essays and thinking and how to write analysis-based short writings, long writings, whatever form you need to. Analysis-based writing is the key. And by the way, these weren't English or language arts professors or writing and rhetoric professors. These were chemistry professors. These were pre-law and pre-med, mathematics. These were business school professors. We're all telling these things because in so many of these areas, they needed the students to learn how to write analysis essays and write analysis compositions because it was highly lacking amongst students of about 5 years ago. Of course, 5 years ago, having students that have written essays was also severely lacking, and it caused a major problem because an entire generation, part of you may have been a part of that generation or got to do a lot of this, and then some of you may have gotten lucky and not had to deal with it. But unfortunately, an entire generation of students were taught to tests. It was all about teaching to certain standardized tests, and it came to a lot of elements of K through 12 education. And so what happened is these students learned how to take tests, in particular easy Scantron tests, and they were able to weed their way through K through 12 and then even through college, because many college professors are all about having those easy Scantron tests to where they don't even put it in the machine themselves. They hand the things off to their graduate assistants or the TAs, and they put it in a machine, and it grades things for them. It makes life easier, right? Well, that became a problem because what happened was you end up with a lot of students with degrees, not just diplomas from high school, but degrees from college, graduate degrees, even PhDs, MDs, JDs, Juris Doctor, that's lawyer. And because they learned how to game the system and not have to write hardly anything, more or less anything, in analysis essays, they have all these pieces of paper on the wall. They got into the career field that they were doing and couldn't do the job because so much of the career fields of today, you have to have that hands-on experience and you have to be able to learn how to write and think critically and to analyze and to show that analysis to others. And then what happened there is a lot of those students with all that paper on the wall, well, it became wallpaper because they got fired within about 6 months because they could not do the job. And one of the main areas in particular was the very poor writing skills and analysis writing skills of those workers, not students, workers, because eventually you will be workers. And so we were asked by these professors who were themselves, they were asked by their bosses, and their bosses were asked by a lot of people in power up in Jackson, which is our state capital here in Mississippi. And it isn't just a Mississippi problem, by the way. This is a nationwide, or was a nationwide problem. They begged them who beg us, and to also beg the high school teachers, you have to have them writing. And you may have noticed in themselves, you may have noticed you hardly did any writing up until a certain grade, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, you had to write a bunch, which is good that they at least got you when they did, but unfortunately it left you at a disadvantage, and a lot of students at a disadvantage because you didn't have all those basic necessary skills that you needed in the let's say K through 8 levels, elementary, upper elementary, middle school, junior high area, and then you get thrown into the wolves in high school. And by the way, you still had it better than the other ones who were in many cases thrown into the wolves their senior year, which is still better than being thrown into the wolves when you got to college. So it wasn't the best thing in the world, but you still got it better than others when it came to all that. So, but the emphasis is you have to have them writing, you have to have them writing. And so they asked us, in particular, those of us who taught at community college and junior colleges, because we do feed a lot of those students off to universities, you must have them writing analysis essays. And they asked us, the English ones in particular, to do this. And so we obliged, and we tried to make it in a way that was already fitting into something that we were already doing. We already taught compare and contrast, so that was the most natural of fits. And the reason is this. When writing analysis work, understand what analysis is breaking down the whole of something you're dealing with into its individual parts and fully delving into those individual parts. And by fully delving into those individual parts and describing those individual parts and what is the essence of those individual parts, you then tell the story of the whole. And this is key because, in particular, in a world that we live in, literature, but in many of the, in particular, you see it a lot in the STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics areas. An issue of people wanting to summarize everything. I tell my Comp 2 students all the time, I don't want straight summary. I already know the story. I teach the thing. Summary is a part of it, yes, but you don't want a straight summary of the work of whatever you're dealing with, because when you summarize, particularly when you have certain parameters, you end up lightly touching the issue at hand, but barely going to any depth at all. So whether or not there's actual there is fine, and that all it actually is not fine. It's a bad thing that the there that you're supposed to have an in-depth knowledge of something isn't there. You lightly touch it, and it kind of sends itself to the same mode of these Scantron tests. These teach them the test ideas, like do just enough to get them through the test, and then if they forget anything, if they forget everything beyond that, then who cares because they passed the test? Well, no, you need to have that knowledge in you. So here's the key about analysis. Analysis means I know that you know in depth, at least in these 3 areas, because you'll bring up at least 3 points of analysis when you do this essay. And since I know you can go in depth in these 3 areas, they all, one, tell the story as a whole, so that gets a clearer picture of the story without doing a straight, boring summary. And at the same time, it means I know that you can, if you wanted to, if I told you, hey, you've got to go in depth in every single point of analysis you found in something, you could do it. I wouldn't ask it to you because that's cruel as hell. I actually had to do that once, actually 3 times in graduate school with 3 different 20-line poems, poetry explications, and I had to go insanely in depth with those. And basically, I wrote 3 3-hour, 7.5-page handwritten essays on 20-line poems. It's as much fun as it sounds. Weirdly enough, I actually enjoy it. I can do it. I actually enjoyed certain elements of it. I'm not going to lie, I actually did. It's unfortunately what type of person I am, but you don't have to do that by any means. All you're going to be asked to do 3 points of analysis within what you will be then comparing and contrasting, which is the other element of it. It's basically show how these things are similar, show how they are unique, and then show how and why one's uniqueness makes it better than the other. And you'll have those 3 points of analysis. Each individual point will be won by one side or the other. And then when it comes to the ultimate decision, you will have a winner, 2-1 or 3-0. That is highly important, and I cannot stress this enough. Each individual point must be won, and then the essay as a whole must be won by one side or the other. There are no ties. If you have a tie in any individual point or the essay as a whole, you pull the whole, I can't decide which one's better, everybody wins. You lose and you earn a 0, and I have 0 sympathy for you. There are winners and losers in life, and you will have to choose them. Yes, I know I'm going against the grain because you were all taught that nobody's better than anybody else. Wrong. I mean, let's look at sports. The Lakers were just better than the Heat. Unfortunately, I'm a Dallas Stars fan. The Lightning were just better than the Stars. Right now, my Braves are better, hopefully, than Dodgers. And it looks like the Rays are better than the Astros. That's just how, and life's like that too, by the way. Unfortunately, your generation, I don't want to be you damn kids, but, and it's actually your fault. This was our fault for pushing this crap on you. That everyone is equally awesome and okay, and nobody's a winner and nobody's a loser. We don't keep score, all this other stuff. No, 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 no. Real world, there's winners, there's losers. And more important than the fact that you acknowledge there are winners and losers, when you get into the work field, you might be the one who has to acknowledge who the winners and who the losers are. If you want to do a career like mine, although I probably scared you away from that just on these videos, you have to. You're ethically bound to. I can't just throw grades at y'all. It'd make my life a lot easier if I could do that, but eventually I'd probably get caught and they'd either tell me to stop or wish me well in my future endeavors. And you may have your own business one day. That's the route you go into. And your inability to choose a loser when one is clearly there could cost you and others your livelihoods. You have to choose those winners and those losers in life. And so they not only do they exist, but you have to be the one that chooses them. And so let's break out of the mentality of everybody's a winner. No, not everybody's a winner. Not everybody's a loser either. But you have to analyze the individual parts of what you're dealing with, tell the story as a whole, and then decide who that winner and that loser is. And you will do that in this essay. Now, what you're using on that. This will be the one essay in which I control somewhat what it is that you will be writing about. In general, I'm a choose your own topic because, again, I want to make you think whether you like it or not. And if this was a physical class, I would tell you exactly what you are doing when it comes to what you are comparing and contrasting. In fact, you would see it on your syllabus. Originally scheduled for last week was for you to watch the 1974 version of The Great Gatsby, and originally what it's scheduled for this week is to watch the 2013 version of The Great Gatsby. When I teach this class physically, I show both of these movies physically in my classroom. And for one semester, I could actually show these movies through YouTube. I purchased them, I posted them on Canvas, and my students were actually able to watch these movies. It worked for all of the semester. And apparently that violated some code or whatever of, the copyright infringement or whatever. And therefore, unless you yourself have rented it or purchased the movie, you aren't able to watch it. So because of that small difficulty, which became a large difficulty when it happened live action last semester, what I've decided to do is if you would like to do the two Gatsby movies, that is by all means, that's the original assignment, that's fine. If you'd like to utilize two other movies that are either exactly the same or similarly themed, you can do so. The easiest way to go about this is to find the same movie that's been made at least twice. So you can compare and contrast the two movies. That's why I put forth The Great Gatsby, because I've actually been, I think, 5 different versions, but the two most famous are the 74 version, because that's Robert Redford, Sam Larson, who's from Law and Order, and Mia Farrow are in it. And then, of course, the modern version from only 2013, because that's Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire, Carey Mulligan, that version of the movie, which many of you may have already watched. So that's why I showed those two. But because of the issues we had with YouTube and whatever rights and all that, what I decided to do is you can choose. You can do those two, or you can choose two movies so long as they're either the exact same movie but done two different times, or they have similar themes, if you would like to do that. One you could do is there's a movie version of Taming of the Shrew, and then you can do the movie 10 Things I Hate About You from 1999, which you are able to do if you'd like, because the thematic elements are the same. The latter of the two was inspired by the play, and the earlier of the two was the movie version of the play. So you could do those as well. Already now, if you're worried about it, by all means, run the two movies by me, and I will let you know whether it works or not. Because I don't want you just pulling things at your rear end either. I don't want you, to where it doesn't make any sense, but you just had two movies you wanted to watch. No, that's not going to work. It has to have, because you're going to have to compare and contrast. You're going to have to analyze 3 points of analysis that show up in each of the movies. It's got to be in both, and analyze those individual parts, and then compare and contrast those two parts with each other. Note how they're the same, similar. Note how they're unique or different. Then note how one's uniqueness is better than the other. And then at the end of that paragraph, you will note that one movie won that point of analysis over the other one. It won it because of blah, blah, blah. You'll do that 3 times, have a proper thesis paragraph and a proper concluding paragraph. But this is key, and this is an area, and I will say this, and some of you still won't do it, and then you'll wonder why you lost all your available points on the thesis. So please pay attention to this part. Your thesis statement must note which movie won over the other and why. Let me repeat that. Your thesis statement, and I'll go ahead and say right now, your concluding statement as well. Your thesis statement, which is the last sentence of your first paragraph, the thesis paragraph, and your concluding statement, which is the first sentence of your last paragraph, the concluding paragraph, must note what we call the although because thesis statement. Although, or actually check that, doesn't all have to be. If each side at least wins 1 point, then you have an although because thesis statement. Although losing side's one winning point of analysis, comma, because winning movie is 2 points, comma, winning movie is better than losing movie, period. Now, if it ends in a sweep, then it's just because of 1, comma, 2, comma, and 3, another comma, because you have a dependent clause up to that point, or it's actually introductory in nature. This movie is better than that movie. So something similar to this. Let's say it ends, let's say you do the 2 Gatsby movies. And it ends with one movie winning 2 points of analysis and the other only winning 1. So here's a way you could do it. Although the 1974 version of The Great Gatsby, and by the way, movie titles are italicized, so whenever you reference movie titles, you italicize the title. I repeat, anytime you reference a movie title, you italicize the title. So let me go back. Although the 1974 version of italicized The Great Gatsby, back to normal text, was more authentic to the actual book, comma, because the 2013 version had better music, and Leonardo DiCaprio did a better version of Jay Gatsby than Robert Redford, comma, the 2013 version of The Great Gatsby is better than the 1974 version, period. And that's how your thesis statement would be. And then in a flipped, reformed version, your concluding statement would be something similar. Let's say it ends in a sweep. Because, since since one won a sweep, because is that word. And by the way, your thesis statement and this type of thesis statement is the only time which you would ever begin a sentence with a subordinate conjunction. Because it had better music, comma, a better wardrobe, comma, and Leonardo DiCaprio did a better job playing Jay Gatsby than Robert Redford, comma, because it's still dependent at that point. The 2013 version of The Great Gatsby is better than the 1974 version, period. That's how your thesis statement would be and how it must be. And it must be the last sentence. If you're losing points on the thesis part of your essays, check that last sentence. Is it the controlling idea of the entire essay? Is it what is being asked of you? Is it your a topic or idea and your slant or opinion on that topic or idea? Is it the controlling idea of the entire paragraph? Is it structured the way it's supposed to be? And is it the last sentence? Because if it's not the last sentence, you're going to lose some points. If it doesn't exist at all, you're going to lose all of them. Or if, even worse, you have a question as a thesis. Never have a question as a thesis. That's very bad. In fact, don't have a question anywhere near the thesis statement. And the same thing in the concluding statement as well. Concluding statement just kind of restates the thesis without restating the thesis, which I know is confusing as hell when I say it that way. But basically, here's the difference. In the first bit, when you do the thesis statement, you're saying what you're going to do. In the concluding statement, you're saying you've done it. And then you bring it further out to the broader implications, which is what you should be doing in a proper concluding paragraph, all the way to that emphatic drop the mic moment at the end. So that's how that should be. But you need to have that. And so again, a reminder that the thesis statement and how you have the thesis statement is important, and where it is important. A proper thesis statement is always the last sentence of your thesis paragraph, which is the first paragraph. A proper concluding statement is always the first sentence of the last paragraph, the concluding paragraph. And they must be where they are, and they must be what they do, because they are the controlling idea. If they're not, you're losing some points, or possibly all of them, if it's nowhere to be found. And then set your essay off not very well. So again, make sure that you you read these two chapters, chapter 14 in whole, and then part of chapter 19 that deals with comparison and contrast. And that you either watch the two Gatsby movies that I've assigned, or again, similar, or movies that are either exactly the same but are released done two separate times, or that thematically are similar enough to where maybe one was inspired by the other, or like in the example before, the earlier movie was inspired directly by the play, and then like word for word in many cases. And then the latter movie was inspired by the play, but done in a late 1990s version, which is what 10 Things I Hate About You is. It's basically a late 90s, my high school time version of Taming the Shrew. And yes, we did dress that way. Luckily, it was before Facebook, so none of you will ever see the pictures. But that's what you will do. So again, either do two Gatsbys or movies that are exactly the same movie done twice, or similar themed movies to where one inspired by the other, or both were inspired by the same prior work. So that is what you will do for this week, including the journals that I've already noted that you will need to do. And just to let you know, that's what you're going to be doing next week as well. Only I will do another video because the next week I'll basically tell you, hey, you have a week or less than a week to get this essay done, because this essay is going to have to be in a tight 2-week time frame. I'm not going to be able to expand any more than this because we're already a week behind, but luckily because of the way the schedule works, I can lose a week and be fine. We cannot afford to lose 2 weeks. So this will be on a tight 2-week time frame, this week and next. The Tuesday after that, which lands us on the 27th of October, is when that essay will be due. So actually, let's say the night of the 26th, just to be straight on that. And then on the 27th, 28th, we move on to all the biggest part of this semester, which will be both learning how to do research, learning research methods, how to properly source and cite, and how to write an argumentative essay. But we'll deal with that when we get to that. As far as this essay is concerned, your typical MLA 8th edition that you've been doing this whole semester, only now this essay gets to 1,100 words. So you've already done 700 words, you've already done a 900-word one. The compare contrast analysis essay will be 1,100 words, an analysis and comparing and contrasting of individual points of analysis between two different of the same movie, two different versions of the same movie, or thematically similar movies, comparing and contrasting. Again, if you need to run it by me what movies you're using, go ahead and do that. And you'll be working on that for the next 2 weeks. Again, 1,100 words, proper MLA 8th edition format, everything as before that needed to be done. Make sure you get done. I hope you're all well, and I will send another video next week.